Well, good morning, everybody. This is Margie here from Nature Health. And as with my previous podcasts and recordings, I'm really excited to have the most awesome woman who's done the most amazing work in the category that I'm working in with women over 45 and 50. But this particular area we're going to be talking about today is all about menopause. And my guest today is Breeda Bermingham, and she has so much to share, not only in her previous work life as a midwife and a public health nurse. She then went on and studied psychology and did her master's in psychology. And she brings this whole ethos into the work that she's done. And I'm really excited to share with you, for those who don't know, she's recently launched her amazing book, and the title is Midlife Women Rock. So we're going to hear a little bit about that in just a moment. So welcome, Breeda, and thank you for accepting to be my guest today.
Thank you, Margie, and lovely to be here with you.
So there's so much we can talk about. So let's start right at the beginning. I'd like to ask you, why has menopause remained hidden, as it were, from societies for so long?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I have been researching menopause over the last 3 years when I was completing a degree in psychology back in 2018. And I was looking at the research around midlife women, and menopause, of course, is a huge part of this story. And I was perplexed that I myself had so little knowledge around this stage in our lives. And I went digging deeper into the research. I went back and I completed a master's in sociology. So I was looking at how we arrived here, how as women and as societies, we have come to a phase in our lives where we have so little information, so little education, and no preparation. And what I discovered was that, historically, when women reach the end of their reproductive years, there's this story associated with degeneration, devaluation, invisibility that was emerging inside in the literature. And again, it's a story that needs to be challenged. It's been there for decades and decades. And I really believe it's the value of the woman, of a woman's place in society post reproduction. This is where we need to explore more of. And Darcy Steinke, in her book Flash Count Diary, she broaches that topic. And there's a magnificent academic paper called Killer Whales and Killer Women, produced by an Australian academic, actually, around the leadership role of women post their reproductive life. And Monash University in Melbourne, actually, also, they're quite progressive in looking at the roles of women post reproduction in society and culturally. So the silence, I found in my own research, the silence is the real enemy, and the shaming of the menopausal woman, again, for decades, is feeding the silence. So if we can break down the silence by bringing the conversation into the public domain and normalizing the conversation, we can remove the shame, because there are so many myths, Margie, associated with menopause, and they are myths and they need to be exploded.
So when we've spoken about how do you feel about normalizing this conversation, so when you say normalizing this conversation, where do you think we start with that?
We start with, at a level of every woman who has a conversation with another woman, be it their sister, be it their partner, be it their husband, be it their daughter, be it their friend. That's how we start. And that's how I started in 2019 when I set up these cafes here, bringing women together, having a cup of coffee, and actually just talking about what was happening for them as they were moving through menopause. So that power in the one conversation is like the ripple effect. Drop the little pebble into the pond and watch the ripple. And here in Ireland, and more so in the UK, I have seen how that massive ripple effect has landed on last Friday with a march outside the Parliament in London on menopause. So it's going to be a marker event in history, you know, women gathering together outside the British Parliament with their hashtag menopause revolution, looking for support, understanding, education, and preparation. Because if we put all of those in place, the menopausal story and experience can be transformed. That's what I've discovered.
So as we move forward in terms of the society and the cultural aspect, how do you think we can move forward there? Because that also affects the workplace.
Yes, and again, the UK are leading the world globally in particular in the workplace. I mean, women over 50 are the fastest growing cohort in the workplace, and women over 50, unfortunately, are also a cohort that are taking time out of the workplace. And some enlightened leaders have noticed this over the last few years. Again, this is all coming from the UK. Why are women who are reaching the peak in their professional career having to leave or having to take extended periods of time? And what they're discovering now, it's the perimenopausal, menopausal experience with no preparation, no education, no support. That's what's contributing to these women, these fantastic women, leaving the workplace. So menopause in the workplace is becoming a very important part of women's well-being. And I've actually just joined an organisation in the UK called Henpicked. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're a magnificent organisation in providing workplace talks around menopause. And again, you see, it's this demystifying the taboo. If women can only open up and talk to one another, we can help each other hugely, as you know, in your own work.
Yes, indeed. So I'm really excited about your book, which you've only recently launched. And in a very short space of time, it became a bestseller on Amazon. Do tell us, firstly, before you tell us about the book, tell us a little bit about why you chose that very dramatic and bold, strong title.
Yes, a few people have asked me that, actually. I feel I chose the title because the overarching language around menopause has been words such as loss, degeneration, deficiency, we're downhill, devaluation, invisibility. They're massively negative, and the language around menopause, the written language, is hugely negative. And I mean, our thoughts and the way we speak to ourselves massively impacts how we feel and how we experience something. And I mean, the research in neuroscience around the brain in the last 5 to 10 years has uncovered more than the previous 100 years. So what we say to ourselves and how we feel about ourselves massively impacts how we experience something. And what I've discovered is that, this negative narrative and rhetoric is not helping women at all. So I decided I was going to use the title of my business is also the Midlife Women Rock project. So I took Midlife Women Rock, a menopause story for a new generation, because we are a new generation of midlife women. Previous generations, they didn't have the education or the voice. We're educated. The majority of women, in our generation, they're more educated than previous generations. We have voices, and we just need to be encouraged to use our voice more. And I see that in the menopause space, more and more grassroots women are coming into the space. And it's a space that was previously occupied by men and male doctors and professors writing for other male doctors and professors. So that's why I chose Midlife Women Rock. it's uplifting, and the response has been wonderful to it overall here.
I think that's absolutely amazing, and I'm sure that that project you're working on is going to go from strength to strength as you develop this great following. Is there something for our listeners or those who see the live broadcast, a way that they maybe can get in touch with you, or a special offer you want to share with them? Is there something that they can be in touch with if they've got any questions or anything of that nature?
Certainly, Margie. My website is www.midlifewomenrockproject.com. I run free monthly Zoom cafes. They're the Midlife Women Rock Cafes, and women from all over Ireland and the UK often come in and join. So if there's anybody else out there that may be interested in joining the cafes, I coach ladies on a one-to-one basis. I basically look at all the different facets of menopause and look at all the different management options that are out there. And in my book, it's the power that we have as women that we do not realize we actually have it. And that's a huge part of my own book, to find what's right for us. Because once women have education and are informed, my belief is that they can find exactly the route to manage this that specifically suits them. And no two women are going to have the same menopausal experience. So management options are very individualized. And once you get the right support, the experience can be transformed from a negative to a very positive time in your life.
Well, I must say, I just find the work that you're doing is fascinating. I think it's going to help. It's going to be like a rippled effect, when you drop a pebble in and so it radiates out. That's what I see when I talk to you and hear what you've done and what you're planning to do. And as you and I are both working in the same space, I'm also delighted to be able to offer women, especially in this category, options where they can make another choice and be an entrepreneur and be in charge of their own life, and not have that negative kind of feedback that we've been accustomed to. We don't have to put up with that anymore. So I want to a huge thank you, Breeda, for coming on and being my guest today. And I look forward to hearing more information as your project develops. And I'm going to also hop onto one of your cafes. That sounds absolutely marvelous. So thank you once again for joining me and our listeners and our viewers.
Thank you for having me, Margie. Thank you.
Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.